starving in the belly, starving in the belly, starving in the belly of a whale. Oh, we're starving in the belly, starving in the belly, starving in the belly of a whale.
Last time I said we'd be keeping it going in a Rami Malek inspired direction, and there's no better way to do that than by something starring the man. So here we are with Buster's Mal Hart, written and directed by Sarah Adina Smith, and starring the aforementioned dude, as well as DJ Qualls and Lynn Shay. And this is a very surreal, cerebral affair. It's not one that you just watch and leave. You know, you get a first impression, of course, but it really does reward sitting and sort of letting it sort of fester in your mind for a while to get a basic idea of what you've taken away from the film. Amy did highly recommend this, and I'm glad she did. She knew I'd appreciate that nuance and the idea of coming away and dwelling on it, sitting with it. You know, we discussed it the day after I watched it, and, you know, it sort of helped me cement some ideas in my head. And it is one of those that I think you can come to it and get one thing out of it, but someone else will get something entirely different. There's elements of just the weirdness. You know, I said it is quite surreal at times. But you've also got something that could be very maudlin, very heartbreaking, very, very depressing. Or it could be a very uplifting film to some. Even though obviously those moments that are quite heartbreaking and depressing still exist, the overall idea of it to some will be very uplifting. Some people think Fight Club is a very down film. Some people see it as a message of hope. And that's what I think you can draw here. Now, I've said before, I'm sure, that I'm a terrible or great person to argue with, because at some point I'll be arguing your point. I can see both sides to an argument, and I think that's why this film is all of those things to me. It's heartbreaking, it's uplifting, it's just weird. But what is it? It's the story of a man having a nervous breakdown. Well, an entire psychotic break, could be argued, I suppose. He's just living a basic life. He just wants to make the best life for his family. And his name is quite interesting. Jonah, or Jonas, Quatal. I probably said that wrongly. But it sounds very similar to Jonah Whale, a little. I might be stretching, but I only say that because the allegory is there. There's so many references here to Jonah and the whale. This great biblical story that I did have to look up just to get a basic idea, but I'll come to that a bit later on. So yes, we have Jonah just trying to make a life for his family, working a dead-end job, doing the night shift, and having worked night shifts, particularly when there's hardly anyone around, they can be very dehumanizing. You can really lose a sense of self. You would probably find it very easy to go a little crazy. But he just either imagines or is visited by the last free man, weirdly credited as Brown in the credits, played by DJ Qualls, who gives him this idea that there's something coming, that the universe will basically go up its own butthole and there'll be a new one born on the other side, but everything will be upside down. And this is a very important part in the sort of Mountain Man Buster segments, where he's flipping the pictures. I got it before it was explicitly explained that that's what he was doing. I was like, wait a minute. He's inverting the pictures. He's preparing for this inversion. He's flipping everything on its head now, so that when the world changes, he's ready for it. But like I say, is he imagining this guy? Later on in the film, you know, this guy does come back after he's told to go away. He comes back seeking just one more night of, you know, shelter. He just needs somewhere to sleep. And during this time, Buster's family have moved into the hotel as a nice gesture from his boss to kind of perhaps help him feel a bit less depersonalised. And once his shift has ended, he goes back to the hotel room and they are dead. They've been brutally murdered. And of course he thinks that this last free man, the guy he saw as some kind of yogi, some sort of mentor, a guru, has potentially killed his family. He gives descriptions to the police. He grieves, and then we find out that there is no one on CCTV. matching that description. There's no one pretty much but his family and the guests that were known. And that brings up a question. Did he do it? Did he have a psychotic break and kill his family? Maybe. But he can't accept that. And he ends up obviously disappearing. He doesn't finish out the funeral. He goes away and becomes the mountain man. And eventually, you know, we're led to the end of the film, which is pretty much where we come in. I love that circuitous storytelling that happened there. On New Year's Eve of year 2, you know, the Y2K thing, that was where the inversion was going to happen. And he either dies or inverts. And it's not clear. He wakes up on a beach with what could be Marty and Roxy, his wife and child, running towards him. But he could just be dead, and this is like some either death thoughts or perhaps an idea of heaven. But that idea of heaven, because it would be heaven to him, you know, being washed up on a beach with his wife and child, now alive, coming to spend time with him, that idea of heaven does make a lot of sense, because I said before, there's a lot of Jonah and the whale in this, and part of that story, I don't know how familiar you are with it, I had to look it up, but part of the story is the idea of seeking redemption. It's trying to repent for what you've done and sort of getting in God's good graces by spreading the message and hopefully getting that forgiveness and redemption through God. Assuming that that is what happened, you know, that Jonah in this story did get that redemption, then of course he'd be granted, you know, a chance at heaven. He'd be given his spot. But it's all still very likely that he died. But if that's the case, well, where's the body? That's what I mean by this, you know, that every thought you have, there's always a but. Because if that is heaven, then yes, he must be dead. But the deputies, the sheriffs, they don't find the body. He just disappears. So unless he fired the gun, ran off into nowhere very quickly, which is another more realistic interpretation, what happened to him? Who was this last free man? Because he is so sure he exists, and he's so sure he didn't kill his family, but they didn't stab themselves. There is a lot to love about this film, and I've given a basic overview and sort of my basic thoughts on it, but it is one that it sort of defies an easy analysis, an easy classification. It is one that I think you have to watch yourself and take away your own thoughts. In the UK at the moment, it is on Netflix, and I highly urge you to watch it and make your own, you know, draw your own conclusions, because I think you'll probably come out with something entirely different from me. I won't be surprised. But next time we are moving away from Rami Malek himself, but something that is still tangentially related, so I do hope you'll join me for that. But until then, as always, thanks for watching and take care.